The blizzard came down so hard that Amelia Thornton could barely see the backs of her own oxen, their dark forms nearly swallowed by the white fury that surrounded her wagon on all sides. She had been warned not to take this route through the Nevada mountains in late February of 1872, but the letter she carried in her coat pocket had insisted she come quickly, that her aunt in Pioche needed her desperately. Now, as the wind howled and the snow piled higher against the wooden wheels, Amelia realized that her stubbornness might cost her everything. The wagon lurched suddenly, tilting at a dangerous angle as one wheel sank deep into a hidden drift. Amelia yanked hard on the reins, calling out to the oxen, but the beasts were exhausted and frightened. Another gust of wind slammed into the canvas cover, and she felt the entire wagon shift again. The oxen bellowed in distress, straining against their yokes as the snow continued to fall in thick, relentless sheets. She had left Carson City 3 days ago with high hopes and a trunk full of her belongings. At 23 years old, Amelia had spent the last 5 years teaching in a small schoolhouse, saving every penny she could. When her Aunt Margaret's letter arrived, speaking of illness and loneliness in the mining town of Pioche, Amelia had not hesitated. Margaret was the only family she had left after her parents died of fever when she was 18. The decision to go had been easy. The journey was proving to be anything, but the temperature dropped as night began to fall, and Amelia knew she was in serious trouble. The wagon was now tilted at such an angle that she could barely stand inside it. Snow had piled up past the wheels on one side, and more was accumulating by the minute. She wrapped herself in every blanket she had, huddling in the corner of the wagon bed, praying that the storm would pass before she froze to death or suffocated under the weight of the snow. Hours passed in a blur of cold and fear. Amelia drifted in and out of consciousness, her fingers and toes numb despite the layers of wool surrounding her. She thought of her aunt, waiting in Pioche, wondering if her niece would ever arrive. She thought of the students she had left behind in Carson City, their eager faces turned toward her as she taught them to read and cipher. She thought of all the things she had wanted to do with her life, all the dreams that might die here in this frozen wasteland. When morning came, the storm had not abated. If anything, the wind seemed even stronger, the snow even thicker. Amelia could no longer see anything beyond the canvas walls of her wagon. She tried to move, but found that her limbs would barely respond to her commands. This was how it would end, she thought distantly. Buried alive in a snowdrift, her wagon becoming her tomb. But then, through the howling wind, she heard something. A voice, deep and masculine, calling out words she could not quite distinguish. At first she thought she was dreaming, but the voice came again, closer this time. Someone was out there in the storm. Amelia tried to call back, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She tried again, forcing air through her frozen throat, and this time managed a weak cry for help. The voice responded immediately, and she heard the sound of digging, of snow being shoveled away with desperate urgency. It seemed to take forever, but gradually the pile of snow against the wagon began to diminish. Light filtered in through gaps in the canvas, and Amelia felt tears freeze on her cheeks as hope surged through her chest. She was not going to die here after all. The canvas flap at the back of the wagon was suddenly pulled aside, and a man's face appeared, framed by a heavy coat collar and a wide-brimmed hat covered in snow. His eyes were a startling blue, even in the dim light, and his face was weathered and strong, with a dark beard dusted white with frost. "Madam, are you alive in there?" he called, his voice rough but kind. "Yes," Amelia managed, her teeth chattering so hard she could barely form the word. Yes, I am alive. Thank God for that, the man said, and without another word he climbed into the wagon, brushing off snow as he came. We need to get you warm right away. Can you move? Amelia tried, but her body would not cooperate. The man did not hesitate. He wrapped her in his own heavy coat, adding it to the layers she already wore, and then lifted her as if she weighed nothing at all. She caught a glimpse of his face up close, the strong jaw, the concerned eyes, before he was carrying her out of the wagon and through the snow. The storm still raged around them, but the man moved with confidence, as if he knew exactly where he was going. Amelia could see a dark shape through the white, growing larger as they approached. A cave, she realized. He had found shelter in a cave. Once inside, the howling of the wind became muffled, and Amelia could feel the difference in temperature immediately. It was still cold, but the absence of wind made it bearable. The man set her down gently near a small fire that flickered against the cave wall, then went back out into the storm. He returned moments later with saddle bags and a bedroll, which he spread out near the fire. "Can you sit up?" he asked, kneeling beside her. Amelia nodded, and with his help, she managed to position herself closer to the fire. The warmth felt like a miracle against her frozen skin, though it also brought a painful tingling sensation as blood began to flow back into her extremities. The man worked quickly and efficiently, building up the fire, and then producing a battered tin cup, which he filled with water from a canteen. He set the cup near the fire to warm, then turned his attention back to Amelia. "My name is Aaron Irwin," he said, pulling off his snow-covered hat and running a hand through dark, slightly shaggy hair. "I am a ranch hand, heading back to my employer's spread outside of Pioche. I saw your wagon yesterday evening, just as the storm was getting really bad. I tried to reach you then, but the snow was coming down too hard. I took shelter here and went out at first light to dig you free." "Amelia Thornton," she replied, her voice still shaky. "Thank you for saving my life, Mr. Irwin. I truly thought I was going to die in that wagon." "You nearly did," Aaron said bluntly, though his tone was gentle. "What were you doing out here alone in this weather? Did you not know a storm was coming?" "I knew there might be snow," Amelia admitted, feeling foolish now. "But I did not expect anything like this. I was trying to reach Pioche. My aunt is ill and needs me." Aaron's expression softened further. "Well, you are not going to be any good to your aunt if you freeze to death on the way. The storm should pass by tomorrow, and then we can assess the damage to your wagon and figure out how to get you the rest of the way to town." "Tomorrow," Amelia repeated, looking around the cave with new eyes. "You mean we are going to be stuck here together until then?" "Looks that way," Aaron said, and there was something in his voice that might have been amusement. "I hope that does not trouble you too much, Miss Thornton. I promise I am a gentleman, despite appearances." Amelia looked at him properly for the first time. Despite being covered in snow and frost, there was something solid and dependable about Aaron Irwin. His face was honest, his eyes direct. She had been a schoolteacher long enough to develop good instincts about people, and everything in her told her that this man could be trusted. "I am not troubled," she said quietly. "Only grateful. You saved my life, Mr. Irwin. I will never be able to repay that debt." "No debt," Aaron said firmly. He handed her the now warm cup of water. "Drink this slowly. Your body needs to warm up from the inside as well as the outside." Amelia obeyed, sipping the water carefully. It felt wonderful going down, though it made her realize just how hungry she was as well. As if reading her mind, Aaron produced some dried beef and hardtack from his saddle bags. "It is not much," he said apologetically, "but it will keep us going until we can reach civilization." They ate in companionable silence, the fire crackling between them. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the mountains, but inside the cave, Amelia felt safer than she had in days. She studied Aaron when she thought he was not looking, taking in the worn but clean clothes, the capable hands, the way he moved with quiet confidence. He was probably close to her own age, perhaps a year or two older, and there was something about him that made her heart beat a little faster. She told herself it was just gratitude, the natural response to being rescued from certain death. But as the evening wore on and they talked quietly by the fire, Amelia began to suspect it might be something more. Aaron told her about his work on the ranch, about growing up in Missouri and coming west after the war ended. He had been just 17 when he joined up to fight for the Union, lying about his age to enlist. The things he had seen during those years had changed him, made him want to find somewhere quiet and simple to rebuild his life. The ranch outside of Pioche was not much, but it was honest work, and the owner was a fair man. In turn, Amelia told him about her years teaching, about the satisfaction of watching children learn to read their first words. She spoke about her parents and how their death had forced her to become independent long before she might have otherwise. She mentioned her aunt only briefly, unwilling to dwell on the worry that had been gnawing at her since she received the letter. As night fell properly and the cave grew darker despite the fire, Aaron insisted that Amelia take his bedroll. She protested, but he would not hear any arguments. "You need the rest more than I do," he said firmly. "I will keep the fire going and make sure we do not have any unwanted visitors." "Unwanted visitors?" Amelia asked, suddenly nervous. "Mountain lions, mostly," Aaron said, then seemed to realize this was not reassuring. "But the fire will keep them away. You have nothing to worry about, Miss Thornton. Get some sleep." Amelia lay down on the bedroll, still wrapped in multiple layers of blankets and Aaron's coat. Despite the hard ground beneath her and the strangeness of the situation, exhaustion pulled her under almost immediately. Her last conscious thought was of Aaron's blue eyes watching her from across the fire, and the feeling of safety that came with his presence. She woke several times during the night, always to find Aaron still awake, tending the fire or sitting with his back against the cave wall, keeping watch. Each time, he noticed her stirring and spoke softly, assuring her that all was well, that she should go back to sleep. And each time, Amelia felt her heart warm in a way that had nothing to do with the fire. When morning finally came, the howling of the wind had ceased. Amelia sat up, stretching muscles stiff from cold and the hard ground, and looked toward the cave entrance. Daylight filtered in, bright and clear, revealing a world transformed by snow. Aaron was already up, standing at the mouth of the cave and looking out at the landscape. When he heard her moving, he turned with a smile that made Amelia's breath catch in her throat. "The storm has passed," he announced, "and it looks like it is going to be a beautiful day. How are you feeling?" "Better," Amelia said, and it was true. The warmth had returned to her limbs, and though she was hungry and dirty, she was alive. "Thanks to you, Mr. Irwin." "Aaron," he corrected gently. "I think we can dispense with formalities after spending a night in a cave together. Do you not agree, Miss Thornton?" "Only if you call me Amelia," she replied, feeling a blush warm her cheeks. They shared what was left of the dried beef for breakfast, and then Aaron announced that he was going to check on Amelia's wagon. She insisted on coming with him, and though he looked like he wanted to argue, he eventually nodded. The journey back to the wagon was difficult, with snow piled high in drifts that came up to Amelia's thighs in places. Aaron helped her through the worst of it, his hand firm and steady when she needed support. When they finally reached the wagon, Amelia's heart sank. The vehicle was buried under at least 6 feet of snow on one side, listing at such a severe angle that it looked like it might topple over at any moment. The canvas cover was torn in several places, and when Aaron dug down to check the wheels, he found that one had cracked under the strain. "Can it be fixed?" Amelia asked, though she already knew the answer from the expression on Aaron's face. "Not out here," he said regretfully. "We would need tools and materials I do not have, and even if I could repair the wheel, your oxen are gone." Amelia had not even thought about the oxen. She looked around frantically, but there was no sign of the animals. They must have broken free during the storm and wandered off, probably dead by now in the deep snow. "Everything I own is in that wagon," Amelia said, her voice small. She had tried to be strong, to face this disaster with courage, but suddenly it was all too much. She sank down into the snow, tears streaming down her face. Aaron was beside her in an instant, his arms coming around her in a comforting embrace. "We will figure this out," he said quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "I promise you, Amelia, we will get your things and we will get you to Pioche. This is not the end of the world, even though it feels like it right now." Amelia leaned into his strength, allowing herself a moment of weakness. His solid presence was like an anchor in the chaos of the last 2 days, and she found herself clinging to him perhaps longer than was strictly proper. When she finally pulled back, wiping at her eyes, she found him looking at her with such kindness that it made her want to cry all over again. "I am sorry," she said. "I am not usually so emotional." "You have been through an ordeal," Aaron replied. "Anyone would be upset. But listen, here is what we are going to do. My horse is back at the cave, and he is strong enough to carry both of us and some of your belongings. We will take what we can today, and I will come back with help from the ranch to retrieve the rest. The wagon itself might be a loss, but we will save everything that matters." His plan was sensible and generous, and Amelia felt gratitude wash over her once again. "You have already done so much for me. I cannot ask you to do more." "You are not asking," Aaron said firmly. "I am offering. Now, let us see what we can salvage from your wagon before the day gets too warm and the snow starts to melt. That will only make things more difficult." They spent the next few hours carefully extracting items from the wagon. Aaron used his knife to cut away the damaged canvas, giving them better access to the interior. Amelia's trunk was retrieved, along with several carpetbags and a wooden box containing her most precious possessions, including her mother's jewelry and her father's pocket watch. There were also books, lots of books, which Aaron carefully wrapped in oilcloth to protect from moisture. By the time they had gathered everything they could reasonably carry, the sun was high in the sky and Amelia was exhausted again. Aaron made several trips back to the cave, hauling loads while Amelia sorted through items, deciding what was essential and what could wait for a second trip. Finally, Aaron declared they had done all they could for one day. He helped Amelia back to the cave, where they ate a meager lunch of hardtack softened in warm water. Then Aaron went to fetch his horse, a sturdy bay gelding who had been sheltered in a rocky overhang deeper in the cave system. "This is Rusty," Aaron introduced the horse, patting the animal's neck affectionately. "He has carried me through worse than this, and he will get us safely to Pioche." Rusty was indeed a fine-looking animal, with intelligent eyes and a calm demeanor. Aaron loaded the horse carefully with Amelia's belongings, distributing the weight evenly across the saddle bags and using rope to secure the trunk. When everything was ready, he helped Amelia mount, then swung up behind her. The warmth of his body against her back was startling and intimate in a way that made Amelia's pulse quicken. She tried to sit properly, maintaining a respectful distance, but the configuration of the saddle made it impossible. She was essentially sitting in Aaron's lap, his arms coming around her to hold the reins. "Are you comfortable?" he asked, his voice close to her ear. Yes, Amelia managed, though comfortable was not quite the word she would have chosen. Acutely aware was more accurate. Every movement of the horse seemed to press them closer together, and she could feel the solid muscle of Aaron's chest against her back, the strength of his arms as he guided Rusty through the snow. They rode in silence for a while, following what Aaron said was an old hunting trail that would eventually lead them down out of the mountains and toward Pioche. The sun sparkled on the snow, turning the landscape into something beautiful despite the danger it represented. Amelia found herself relaxing into Aaron's embrace, her initial self-consciousness fading as exhaustion, and the rocking motion of the horse worked their magic. "Tell me about Pioche," she said eventually, wanting to break the comfortable silence before she became too aware of the way Aaron's breath stirred her hair. "It is a mining town," Aaron said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Silver and lead mostly. Rough place, lots of men and not enough women. There are saloons and gambling halls, but also churches and stores. Your aunt lives there, you said." "Yes. She moved there with her husband about 10 years ago. He was a mining engineer. He died 3 years back in an accident, but my aunt stayed on. She runs a boarding house now." "That must be Margaret Thomas," Aaron said with recognition. "I know her, actually. She is a fine woman, well respected in town. I did not know she was ill." "She wrote that it was nothing serious," Amelia said, though worry crept back into her voice. "But she said she was lonely and needed family around her. I came as quickly as I could." Aaron's arms tightened slightly around her, a gesture of comfort. "I am sure she will be very glad to see you. And do not worry, we will have you there by tomorrow evening at the latest." The rest of the day passed in a blur of white landscape and steady progress down the mountain. Aaron stopped periodically to rest Rusty and to make sure Amelia was not too cold or uncomfortable. Each time he was solicitous and kind, offering her water and what little food remained, insisting she take the larger portion. As the sun began to set, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold, Aaron announced they would need to make camp for the night. They had covered good distance, but Pioche was still too far to reach before dark, and traveling these trails in darkness would be dangerous. He found a sheltered spot among a stand of pine trees, where the snow was not as deep, and the boughs overhead would provide some protection. While Amelia stamped her feet to restore circulation, Aaron made quick work of building a fire and setting up a simple camp. He had a small tent in his gear, barely large enough for 2 people, which he erected with practiced efficiency. "We will have to share close quarters again tonight," he said, and Amelia thought she detected a note of apology in his voice. "But it will be warmer than the cave, at least." They ate beans that Aaron cooked over the fire, simple fare but delicious after the long day. As darkness fell and the temperature dropped, they retreated into the tent. It was indeed small, and there was no way to maintain any real distance between them. They lay side by side, wrapped in blankets, their shoulders touching. "Aaron," Amelia said quietly into the darkness. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you come back for me? You said you saw my wagon yesterday evening, but you could have just kept going. You did not know me. You had no obligation to help." There was a long silence, and Amelia wondered if she had overstepped somehow. But then Aaron spoke, his voice thoughtful. "I could not just leave you there," he said simply. "What kind of man would that make me? Besides, I kept thinking about what it must be like to be trapped and alone in that storm, not knowing if anyone would come. I have been alone before, and it is not a good feeling. I would not wish that on anyone." "You are a good man, Aaron Irwin," Amelia said softly. "I try to be," Aaron replied. "My mother raised me to believe that we are put on this earth to help each other. She died when I was 15, but I still hear her voice sometimes, telling me to do the right thing even when it is hard. Amelia felt a lump in her throat. I think your mother would be very proud of the man you have become. Aaron did not respond, but she felt him shift beside her, moving slightly closer. When his hand found hers in the darkness, she did not pull away. They lay like that for a long time, fingers intertwined, neither speaking but both acutely aware of the connection forming between them. Amelia knew she should be more careful. She had known this man for barely 2 days, and here she was, lying beside him in the darkness, holding his hand like they were courting. But nothing in her life had felt as right as this moment. Aaron had saved her life, yes, but it was more than gratitude that made her heart race when he was near. There was something about him that called to something deep within her, a recognition that felt almost like coming home. Eventually, she slept, warm and safe with Aaron beside her. When she woke in the morning, she found that she had rolled toward him in the night, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm curved protectively around her. For a moment, she lay still, not wanting to disturb the intimacy of the position. Then Aaron stirred and his eyes opened, focusing on her face just inches from his own. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Good morning," Amelia replied, suddenly shy. She started to pull away, but Aaron's arm tightened slightly, holding her in place. "Amelia," he said, and there was something in his voice that made her breath catch. "I know this is probably too soon, and I know we have only just met, but I need to tell you something." "What is it?" she whispered, her heart pounding. "I have never believed in love at first sight," Aaron said slowly. "I always thought it was something people made up, stories to tell around fires. But these last 2 days with you, I have felt something I have never felt before. Like I was meant to find you in that snowstorm. Like everything in my life has been leading me to this moment." Amelia stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "I feel it too," she admitted. "I thought I was going mad, feeling so much for someone I barely know. But Aaron, I cannot stop thinking about you. When you look at me, I feel like you truly see me, not just a woman who needs rescuing." Aaron reached up with his free hand, gently tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. "You are not just a woman who needed rescuing. You are brave and strong and beautiful. When I dug you out of that wagon, and you looked at me with those eyes, I felt something shift in my chest, like a door opening that I did not even know was closed." They were so close now that Amelia could feel his breath on her lips. Her eyes fluttered closed as Aaron leaned in, closing the final distance between them. His kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving her the chance to pull away if she wanted to. But Amelia did not want to pull away. She kissed him back with all the emotion that had been building inside her since he first appeared at her wagon. The kiss deepened, becoming more urgent, and Amelia felt like she was falling into something vast and wonderful. Aaron's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb stroking her cheek with infinite tenderness. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I know this is fast," he said, "but Amelia, I am falling in love with you. I think I started falling the moment I saw you, half frozen but still fighting to survive. Tell me I am not alone in this. Tell me you feel it too." "I do," Amelia said, tears pricking her eyes. "I feel exactly the same way. I do not understand it, but I cannot deny it either. Aaron, I am falling in love with you too." They kissed again, and this time there was no hesitation, no questioning. This was a kiss of promise, of two people acknowledging the extraordinary connection between them. When they finally emerged from the tent, the sun was well up in the sky, and Amelia felt like she was glowing from the inside out. They made quick work of breaking camp, both eager now to reach Pioche for different reasons than when they had started. Aaron helped Amelia onto Rusty, then mounted behind her. But this time, when his arms came around her, she leaned back into his embrace without reservation, feeling his lips brush against her temple in a gesture of affection. The ride to Pioche took most of the day, but the time seemed to fly by. They talked constantly, sharing stories and dreams, learning everything they could about each other. Aaron told her about his hopes of one day owning his own ranch, a small place where he could raise horses and live peacefully. Amelia shared her love of teaching and her dream of one day opening a school that would accept all children, regardless of their ability to pay. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, buildings appeared in the distance. Pioche spread out before them, a rough collection of wooden structures clinging to the sides of hills scarred by mining operations. It was not beautiful in the traditional sense, but to Amelia, it represented safety and the end of a harrowing journey. Aaron guided Rusty through the streets, which were busy with evening activity. Men heading to saloons for dinner and drink, women hurrying to finish their shopping before stores closed, children playing in the last of the daylight. Aaron seemed to know where he was going, and soon they stopped in front of a large, well-maintained building with a sign that read, "Thomas Boarding House." "Here we are," Aaron said, helping Amelia down from the horse. "Your aunt's place." Amelia looked up at the building, suddenly nervous. She had been so focused on getting here that she had not thought much about what would happen when she arrived. But before she could knock on the door, it flew open and a woman appeared. Margaret Thomas was in her 50s, with iron-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked Amelia up and down, taking in her bedraggled appearance and the handsome cowboy standing protectively beside her, and her expression softened. "Amelia," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Dear God, child, I had almost given up hope. When you did not arrive last week, I feared the worst." "Aunt Margaret," Amelia said, moving forward into her aunt's embrace. "I am so sorry I worried you. I ran into trouble on the way, but Mr. Irwin saved me." Margaret pulled back, looking at Aaron with new appreciation. "Aaron Irwin from the Sanderson Ranch. You rescued my niece." "I did my best, madam," Aaron said modestly. "She was buried in a snowdrift up in the mountains. I happened to be passing by when the storm hit." "Happened to be passing by," Margaret repeated, her tone suggesting she knew there was more to the story. "Well, Mr. Irwin, I am forever in your debt. Please come inside, both of you. You must be exhausted and hungry." Aaron started to protest that he should get back to the ranch, but Margaret would not hear of it. She ushered them both inside, calling for hot water and food, fussing over Amelia like a mother hen. The boarding house was warm and welcoming, with comfortable furniture and the smell of fresh bread in the air. Over dinner, Amelia told her aunt an abbreviated version of what had happened, leaving out the more personal details of her time alone with Aaron. But Margaret was no fool, and Amelia could see her aunt's sharp eyes moving between them, noting the way they looked at each other, the small gestures of care and affection. After the meal, Aaron stood reluctantly. "I really should get back to the ranch. Mr. Sanderson will be wondering what happened to me." "Must you go tonight?" Amelia asked before she could stop herself, then blushed at how needy she sounded. "I mean, it is dark already. Would it not be safer to wait until morning?" "Your niece has a point," Margaret said. "We have plenty of rooms available, Mr. Irwin. Please, stay the night as our guest. It is the least I can do to thank you for bringing Amelia safely to me." Aaron looked like he wanted to argue, but his eyes found Amelia's, and whatever he saw there made him nod. "That is very kind of you, Mrs. Thomas. I accept." Margaret showed Aaron to a room on the second floor, while Amelia was given the bedroom next to her aunt's personal quarters. As soon as they were alone, Margaret turned to her niece with raised eyebrows. "So," she said, That is quite a young man you have brought home. And unless I am very much mistaken, there is something brewing between you two." Amelia felt her cheeks flame. "Is it that obvious, my dear child? You look at him like he hung the moon, and he looks at you like you are the answer to every prayer he has ever prayed. Yes, it is obvious." Margaret sat down on the bed, patting the space beside her. "Tell me everything and do not leave out any details." So Amelia told her aunt the whole story, from the storm to the cave to the tent, and the confession of feelings that morning. Margaret listened without interrupting, and when Amelia finished, her aunt was quiet for a long moment. "I see," Margaret finally said. "And do you truly believe what you feel for him is real? You have known him for such a short time." "I know it sounds crazy," Amelia admitted. "But Aunt Margaret, I have never felt like this before. When I am with him, I feel complete in a way I did not even know I was incomplete. He is kind and brave and good, and when he looks at me, I feel like the most important person in the world." Margaret smiled, and there was something wistful in her expression. "That is how I felt about your uncle when I first met him. Everyone said we were rushing things, that we should wait and be sensible. But we knew. Sometimes you just know, Amelia. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I do not know," Amelia confessed. "He works on a ranch outside of town. I came here to help you. How can we build anything together when our lives are pulling us in different directions?" "We will figure something out," Margaret said firmly. "Life has a way of working these things out if two people are determined enough. Now, get some rest. You have been through a terrible ordeal and you need sleep. Tomorrow we will make plans." Amelia did as she was told, but sleep was elusive. She lay in the comfortable bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Aaron in a room somewhere in this same building. Was he lying awake too, thinking about her? Or had he already drifted off, exhausted from the last few days? She must have eventually slept, because she woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of voices downstairs. Amelia dressed quickly, suddenly anxious to see Aaron again. What if everything had changed in the clear light of day? What if he had realized that what he felt was just the intensity of their situation and not real affection at all? But when she came down to the dining room, Aaron was already there, sitting at the long table with a cup of coffee. The moment he saw her, his face lit up with such genuine pleasure that all of Amelia's doubts vanished. "Good morning," he said, standing as she entered the room. "Did you sleep well?" Eventually, Amelia admitted, accepting the cup of coffee her aunt pressed into her hands. "How about you?" "About the same," Aaron said, and the look in his eyes told her he had been thinking about her too. They ate breakfast together, a comfortable meal with Margaret keeping up a steady stream of conversation about the town and the people Amelia would need to meet. But underneath the ordinary talk, Amelia was acutely aware of Aaron's presence, of the way his knee occasionally brushed against hers under the table, of how his eyes kept finding hers and holding for just a moment too long. After breakfast, Aaron announced that he really did need to get back to the ranch. Amelia walked him out to where Rusty was waiting, freshly fed and rested. "I have to go retrieve your things from the wagon," Aaron said as he checked the saddle. "I promised I would bring back help, and I keep my promises. But Amelia, I want to see you again. Soon. Would that be all right?" "I would like that very much," Amelia said softly. "When will you come back?" "Day after tomorrow," Aaron said immediately. "I will talk to Mr. Sanderson about taking some time. There are things I need to say to you, things we need to figure out." He glanced around, making sure they were alone, then took her hand. "I meant what I said yesterday. I am falling in love with you, Amelia Thornton. That has not changed now that we are back in civilization." "It has not changed for me either," Amelia assured him, squeezing his hand. "Please be careful going back up into those mountains." "I will," Aaron promised. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that made Amelia's heart flutter. "2 days, Amelia, wait for me." "I will," she whispered. She stood in the street, watching him ride away until he disappeared from sight. When she turned back to the boarding house, she found her aunt watching from the doorway with a knowing smile. The next 2 days passed slowly for Amelia. Margaret gave her a tour of Pioche, introducing her to shopkeepers and other women in town. Everyone was kind and welcoming, though Amelia could see the curiosity in their eyes when they learned she was Margaret's niece. Come to stay. Margaret, it turned out, was not actually seriously ill, just lonely and getting older. She had written to Amelia in a moment of melancholy, exaggerating her condition to ensure her niece would come. She apologized profusely when Amelia learned the truth, but Amelia could not be angry. If her aunt had not sent that letter, she never would have been on that mountain road during the storm. She never would have met Aaron. On the evening of the second day, Amelia was helping her aunt prepare dinner when there was a knock at the door. Her heart leaped, and she had to force herself to walk calmly to answer it, not wanting to appear too eager. But it was not Aaron standing on the doorstep. It was an older man, weathered and kind-looking, with a concerned expression on his face. "Are you Miss Amelia Thornton?" he asked. "I am," Amelia confirmed, worry beginning to creep into her chest. "How can I help you? My name is George Sanderson. I own the ranch where Aaron Irwin works." The man took off his hat, twisting it in his hands. "I am afraid I have some news about Aaron. There has been an accident." The world seemed to tilt beneath Amelia's feet. "What kind of accident? Is he all right?" "He will be fine," Mr. Sanderson assured her quickly. "But he took a bad fall when he was up in the mountains retrieving your belongings. His horse spooked and threw him. He has a broken leg and some bruised ribs, but the doctor says he will make a full recovery. However, he is going to be laid up for quite some time." "Where is he?" Amelia demanded. "I need to see him." "He is at the ranch," Mr. Sanderson said. "But Miss Thornton, he specifically asked me to come tell you not to worry and that he would come see you as soon as he was able to travel." "That is ridiculous," Amelia said firmly. "If he cannot come to me, then I will go to him. Mr. Sanderson, would you be so kind as to take me to your ranch?" The older man looked surprised, then pleased. "I would be happy to, miss. Let me bring the wagon around." Margaret appeared behind Amelia, having heard the conversation. "I am coming too," she announced. "Someone needs to make sure you behave with propriety, even if your young man is injured." The ride to the Sanderson ranch took about an hour. It was a modest spread, with a main house and several outbuildings, situated in a valley with good grazing land. Mr. Sanderson explained that he raised cattle primarily, with some horses on the side. He had owned the ranch for 15 years and employed half a dozen men full-time. "Aaron is one of my best workers," Mr. Sanderson said as he helped the women down from the wagon. "Reliable, honest, good with animals. I would hate to lose him, but I can see which way the wind is blowing where you are concerned, Miss Thornton. If he decides his future lies elsewhere, I would understand." Amelia did not know what to say to that, so she simply followed Mr. Sanderson into the ranch house. Mrs. Sanderson, a plump, motherly woman, greeted them warmly and led them to a room on the ground floor. Aaron was lying in bed, his legs splinted and elevated, his face pale but alert. When he saw Amelia, his expression transformed from pain to joy. "Amelia," he said, "you should not have come all this way. I told Mr. Sanderson to tell you I was fine." "You have a broken leg," Amelia said, moving to his bedside and taking his hand. "That is not fine, Aaron. I was so worried when I heard you had been hurt." "It is not so bad," Aaron said, though the tightness around his eyes suggested otherwise. The doctor says I will be back on my feet in a few weeks, good as new. 6 to 8 weeks, Mrs. Sanderson corrected from the doorway. And that is if you follow orders and rest properly, which I will make sure you do. Aaron grimaced but did not argue. His attention was entirely focused on Amelia, his thumb stroking across her knuckles in a gesture that was becoming familiar. Margaret and the Sandersons tactfully withdrew, leaving them alone. As soon as the door closed, Aaron pulled Amelia closer. "I am so sorry," he said. "I wanted to come see you properly, to court you the right way. Instead, I am stuck in this bed, useless." "You are not useless," Amelia said firmly. "And Aaron, I do not need fancy courting. I just need you. These last 2 days without seeing you have been torture. I kept thinking about what you said about falling in love with me and wondering if you still felt the same way." "Of course I still feel the same way," Aaron said, sounding almost offended that she would doubt it. "Amelia, breaking my leg does not change my heart. If anything, lying here has given me too much time to think about how much I want to be with you. I have been trying to figure out how to make this work." "What do you mean?" Aaron took a deep breath. "You came here to help your aunt. I work on this ranch. We live in different places, have different responsibilities, but I cannot stand the thought of being apart from you. So I have been thinking that maybe, when I am healed, I could look for work in town. Something that would let me be closer to you while you are helping your aunt." "Aaron, I cannot ask you to give up your work here," Amelia protested. "Mr. Sanderson said you are one of his best men. This is your livelihood." "It is a job," Aaron said simply. "You are my future, at least I hope you are. Amelia, I know this is fast, but I need to ask you something important." Amelia's heart began to pound. "What is it?" Aaron shifted slightly, wincing at the movement, and reached into the drawer of the small table beside his bed. He pulled out a small wooden box, carved with simple but beautiful patterns. "I made this a few years ago," he said, opening the box to reveal a ring inside. "It was my mother's wedding ring. My father gave it to me before I left Missouri, said I should save it for the woman I wanted to marry. Amelia Thornton, I know we have only known each other a few days. I know people will say we are rushing things. But I also know that I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears flooded Amelia's eyes as she looked at the ring, a simple gold band with a small but pretty stone. It was not fancy or expensive, but it was real and honest, just like the man offering it to her. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "Yes, Aaron, I will marry you. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. I want to be your wife." Aaron's face split into the biggest smile Amelia had ever seen. Despite his injury, he managed to pull her down for a kiss that was full of promise and joy. When they broke apart, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. The door opened and Mrs. Sanderson peeked in, her expression knowing. "I thought I heard celebrating. Should I congratulate you young people?" "Yes, madam," Aaron said proudly. "Amelia has agreed to be my wife, Mrs. Sanderson clapped her hands together with delight, and soon the whole household was crowding into the room to offer congratulations. Margaret hugged Amelia tightly, whispering in her ear that she was happy for her. "I know it is fast," Amelia said to her aunt later as they rode back to Pioche. "But I am certain this is right. I have never been more certain of anything." "I believe you," Margaret said, "and I am not going to stand in your way, but we should wait until Aaron is healed before we have the wedding. Give people time to get used to the idea, and give you two time to truly get to know each other without the intensity of the rescue clouding things." It was good advice, and Amelia knew it. So they set a date 2 months hence, which would give Aaron time to heal and give them both time to prepare for their new life together. Those 2 months were a whirlwind. Amelia visited the ranch as often as propriety allowed, spending hours at Aaron's bedside as he recovered. They talked about everything, sharing their pasts, their fears, their dreams for the future. The more Amelia learned about Aaron, the more certain she became that she had made the right choice. Aaron, it turned out, was not just a simple ranch hand. He had educated himself during his years in the army, reading every book he could get his hands on. He was thoughtful and intelligent, with strong opinions about justice and fairness. He believed in hard work and honest dealing, and he had a gentle way with animals that spoke to his kind heart. As Aaron healed, he began teaching Amelia to ride properly. Her experience with horses was limited to driving the wagon, but Aaron was patient, showing her how to move with the animal, how to communicate through subtle shifts of weight and gentle pressure. They spent hours riding through the valley, talking and laughing, falling more in love with each passing day. Amelia also began to teach at a small school in Pioche, taking over for a teacher who had left to get married. She loved the work, loved seeing the children's faces light up when they mastered a new concept. Aaron would sometimes come watch her teach, leaning against the doorway with a proud smile on his face. When the day of their wedding finally arrived, it was a beautiful spring morning. The ceremony took place in the small church in Pioche, with most of the town in attendance. Aaron stood at the altar looking handsome in a new suit, his leg finally healed and strong again. Amelia wore a simple but lovely dress that Margaret had helped her sew, with wildflowers in her hair. As she walked down the aisle toward Aaron, Amelia thought about the snowstorm that had brought them together. If she had not been caught in that blizzard, if Aaron had not happened to be passing by, if he had not been the kind of man who would risk his life to save a stranger, none of this would be happening. It seemed like fate had brought them together, and Amelia sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. Aaron's eyes never left her face as she approached, and when she reached his side, he took her hand with such tenderness that she felt tears prick her eyes. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows promising to love and cherish each other for all their days, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Aaron kissed her with such passion that several people in the congregation laughed and cheered. The celebration afterward was held at Margaret's boarding house, with food and music and dancing. Amelia danced with her new husband, feeling like she was floating. Aaron held her close, whispering in her ear how beautiful she was, how lucky he felt, how much he loved her. As the evening wore on and the guests began to drift away, Aaron and Amelia slipped out into the night. They were staying in a room at the boarding house for their wedding night, but before going inside, they stood together in the street, looking up at the stars. Happy? Aaron asked, his arm around her waist. More than I can say, Amelia replied, leaning into him. I keep thinking about that snowstorm, how terrified I was. But if it had not happened, I never would have met you. I never would have found this happiness. I think about that too, Aaron said softly. I have been thanking God every day for that storm. It brought me the greatest gift I could ever receive. He turned to face her, his hands coming up to cup her face. I love you, Amelia Irwin. I am going to spend the rest of my life making you happy. You already make me happy, Amelia said, rising on her toes to kiss him. Just by being you. They went inside hand in hand, ready to begin their new life together. The first year of their marriage was full of adjustments and joy. Aaron took a job working with horses in town, training them for ranchers who needed good working animals. It turned out he had a real gift for it, and soon he had more business than he could handle. Amelia continued teaching, and together they saved every penny they could. They rented a small house on the edge of Pioche, modest but cozy. Amelia made it into a home, with curtains on the windows and flowers in pots on the porch. Aaron built her bookshelves for her growing collection of books, and on winter evenings, they would sit together by the fire, reading aloud to each other. They made friends easily. Aaron's honest nature and Amelia's warm personality drew people to them. They hosted dinners and went to church socials, becoming an integral part of the community. Margaret was a frequent visitor, delighted to see her niece so happy. In the spring of their second year together, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. Aaron's reaction when she told him was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy, then immediately set her down gently, worried he might have hurt her. "I am not made of glass," Amelia said, laughing at his concern. "But yes, we are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" "Happy does not begin to cover it," Aaron said, his hand coming to rest gently on her still flat stomach. "I am going to be a father. We are going to be a family." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Amelia had to stop teaching in the final months. Aaron was attentive and worried, fussing over her constantly. She found it endearing, even when his concern became a bit overwhelming. On a cold November night, Amelia went into labor. Margaret and Mrs. Sanderson came to help, and Aaron paced the floor outside the bedroom, looking like he might collapse from worry at any moment. When the doctor finally emerged to tell him he had a son, Aaron actually did collapse, sitting down hard on the floor with relief. They named the baby Andrew, after Aaron's father. He was a healthy, loud infant with dark hair and blue eyes like his father. Aaron held his son with such reverence and love that Amelia fell in love with him all over again. Being parents changed them in ways both expected and unexpected. Sleepless nights and endless diaper changes were exhausting, but the joy of watching their son grow and develop made up for all of it. Andrew was a happy baby, quick to smile and curious about everything. As Andrew grew into a toddler, Aaron began saving seriously for his dream of owning a small ranch. He worked long hours, training horses and taking on extra jobs when he could. Amelia helped by taking in sewing work and giving private lessons to children whose families could afford to pay extra. 3 years after Andrew was born, they had another child, a daughter they named Alice. She had her mother's brown hair and gentle nature, and she completed their family in a way that felt perfect. Aaron was an attentive father to both children, playing with them and teaching them and loving them fiercely. By the time Andrew was 6 and Alice was 3, Aaron had saved enough money to buy a small piece of land about 5 miles outside of Pioche. It was not much, just 50 acres with a creek running through it, but it was theirs. They built a simple house, with Aaron doing most of the work himself with help from friends. It took almost a year, but when it was finished, it was everything they had dreamed of. The ranch started small, just a few horses and some cattle. But Aaron's reputation as a skilled horse trainer brought customers, and slowly, the operation grew. Amelia turned part of the house into a small schoolroom, teaching their children and a few others whose families lived nearby. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The work was hard, but it was theirs. They were building something together, creating a legacy for their children. On summer evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching Andrew and Alice play in the yard, and marvel at how far they had come from that snowstorm in the mountains. Margaret came to visit often, delighting in her great niece and nephew. She had sold the boarding house and moved into a smaller home in town, content in her later years to be close to family. She would sit with Amelia on the porch, shelling peas or mending clothes, and they would talk about everything and nothing. "You did good, child," Margaret said one afternoon, watching Aaron teach Andrew how to properly saddle a horse. "I am proud of you. Your mother would be proud too." "I was lucky," Amelia said softly. "If not for that storm, I might never have met him." "It was not luck," Margaret said firmly. "It was meant to be. Some things are just written in the stars, and you and Aaron were always meant to find each other." As the years passed, the ranch continued to grow. Aaron's expertise became well known throughout the region, and people came from miles away to buy horses he had trained. They hired help, a couple of young men who lived in the bunkhouse Aaron had built. Andrew showed an early aptitude for working with horses, following his father everywhere and absorbing everything Aaron taught him. Alice was gentler, more interested in books and learning like her mother. Amelia taught her to read early, and soon Alice was devouring every book she could get her hands on. She also showed a talent for drawing, filling pages with sketches of the horses and the surrounding landscape. When Andrew turned 12, Aaron sat him down for a serious conversation about the future of the ranch. He explained that everything they were building was for their children, that one day it would belong to Andrew and Alice if they wanted it. "But I want you to know," Aaron said seriously, his hand on his son's shoulder, "that you do not have to be a rancher if that is not what you want. Your mother and I will support you in whatever path you choose. The most important thing is that you are happy and that you live a life of integrity." Andrew, who had his father's steady nature and his mother's quick mind, considered this carefully. "I want to be like you, Pa," he said finally. "I want to work with horses and build something good, but I also want to go to school like Ma did. I want to learn more things." "Then that is what you will do," Aaron said with pride. "We will make it work." And they did. As Andrew grew older, they sent him to a better school in a larger town, though he came home every weekend to help on the ranch. Alice followed a few years later, showing an interest in becoming a teacher like her mother. Life was not always easy. There were droughts and harsh winters, sick animals and financial setbacks. But through it all, Aaron and Amelia faced everything together, their love as strong as it had been that first day in the snowstorm. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Aaron took Amelia back to the place where they had met. The road was better now, well-traveled and maintained, but he found the spot where her wagon had been buried. They stood there together, holding hands, remembering. 20 years, Amelia said wonderingly. "It feels like both forever and no time at all." "Best 20 years of my life," Aaron said, pulling her close. "And I am looking forward to the next 20 and the 20 after that." "You ever regret it?" Amelia asked. "Marrying me so quickly, changing your whole life?" Aaron turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "Not for one single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Amelia. You and our children, this life we have built together. I would not change a single thing, not even the broken leg." Amelia laughed, remembering his frustration during those weeks of recovery. "You were a terrible patient." "I was motivated," Aaron corrected. "I wanted to be healed so I could properly court my bride-to-be." He kissed her gently, his lips familiar and warm. "I love you, Amelia, more today than I did yesterday and less than I will tomorrow." Years continued to pass in a blur of seasons and celebrations. Andrew finished school and came home to work the ranch full-time, bringing with him a young woman he had met in town. Her name was Emma, and she was kind and hardworking, with a quick laugh that reminded Amelia of herself at that age. They were married on the ranch, under the big oak tree near the creek, with the whole community in attendance. Alice became a teacher, just as she had wanted. She took over the schoolhouse in Pioche when Amelia retired, and she was wonderful at it, patient and creative. She eventually married a banker named William, a quiet man who adored her completely. Aaron and Amelia became grandparents, first to Andrew and Emma's son, then to twin girls who were the spitting image of their grandmother. Alice and William had 3 children of their own, filling the ranch with noise and laughter whenever everyone came together for holidays and celebrations. Margaret lived to see her great-great-grandchildren, passing peacefully in her sleep at the age of 87. Amelia mourned her deeply, but she was grateful for all the years they had together, for the wisdom and love her aunt had shared. As Aaron and Amelia grew older, they gradually handed over more of the ranch operations to Andrew and Emma. But they still lived in the house they had built, still sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the land they loved. Aaron's hair turned silver, and his hands became gnarled with arthritis, but he could still gentle a nervous horse like no one else. Amelia's eyes grew weak, requiring spectacles for reading, but her mind stayed sharp, and her smile remained bright. On their 40th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren threw them a huge party. The whole town seemed to turn out, celebrating the couple who had become such an integral part of the community. There were speeches and toasts, stories and laughter. When it was finally just the two of them again, alone on their porch as night fell, Aaron took Amelia's hand. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night in the cave?" he asked. "I said a lot of things," Amelia replied with a smile. "You will have to be more specific." "You thanked me for saving your life," Aaron said. "You said you could never repay the debt." "I remember." "Well, I want you to know something," Aaron continued, his voice serious. "You saved my life too, Amelia. Maybe not from a snowstorm, but from something just as dangerous. I was drifting before I met you, just existing day to day without any real purpose. You gave me a reason to live, a reason to build and dream and hope. You gave me love and a family and a life worth living, so if anyone owes a debt, it is me to you." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. After 40 years, this man could still make her cry with his words. "We saved each other," she said softly. "That is what love does. It saves us from being alone." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. From inside the house, they could hear the sounds of their grandchildren settling down for the night, staying over after the big party. It was a good sound, full of life and promise. As the years continued to pass, Aaron and Amelia watched their family grow and flourish. Andrew expanded the ranch, buying more land and building new barns. Alice's eldest daughter showed a talent for music, filling the house with piano melodies. Their grandchildren grew and had children of their own, and Aaron and Amelia became great-grandparents. They celebrated their 50th anniversary surrounded by 4 generations of family. Aaron was 80 now, still strong but moving more slowly. Amelia was 78, her hair completely white but her spirit undimmed. They renewed their vows in the same small church where they had first married, with their great-grandchildren scattering flower petals down the aisle. The years that followed were gentle ones. They spent their days in simple pleasures, morning coffee on the porch, visits from family, reading together in the evenings. Aaron's hands were too stiff now for hard ranch work, but he still loved to sit and watch the horses, offering advice to Andrew when asked. Amelia's health began to fail in her 82nd year. Nothing dramatic, just a gradual slowing down, a dimming of her bright spirit. Aaron never left her side, caring for her with the same tenderness he had shown when he first pulled her from that buried wagon so many decades ago. On a warm spring morning with Aaron holding her hand and their family gathered around, Amelia slipped peacefully away. Her last words were to her husband, whispered so softly that only he could hear them. "Thank you for finding me in that storm. Thank you for loving me. Wait for me on the other side." Aaron wept, but they were not tears of regret. Amelia had lived a long, full life surrounded by love. She had accomplished her dreams and raised a beautiful family. She had been happy, deeply and truly happy for most of her 82 years. Aaron lived another 3 years after Amelia passed, though part of him died with her. He spent his final years surrounded by family, telling stories of the old days and passing on wisdom to his great-grandchildren. He never stopped talking about Amelia, keeping her memory alive with every tale he told. On a cold winter morning, almost 60 years to the day after he had pulled a frozen young woman from a snow-buried wagon, Aaron passed away in his sleep. The doctor said it was his heart, simply worn out after so many years, but the family knew better. Aaron had simply decided it was time to rejoin his beloved wife. They buried him next to Amelia on a hill overlooking the ranch with a simple stone that read, Aaron Irwin. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, he lived with honor and loved with his whole heart. The ranch continued under Andrew's care, and then his sons after him. The story of how Aaron and Amelia met became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. The children and grandchildren would listen with wide eyes to the tale of the snowstorm, the rescue, the lightning-fast courtship that led to a love spanning 6 decades. The house that Aaron built still stood, maintained lovingly by his descendants. And on the wall in the main room hung a simple wooden box, carved with beautiful patterns. Inside was a gold ring with a small stone, Amelia's wedding ring, kept safe as a reminder of where it all began. In the end, their story was simple. 2 souls who found each other against impossible odds and chose to build a life together. From that one moment of rescue in a blizzard, grew a love that lasted a lifetime and beyond, touching everyone who knew them and inspiring generations to believe in the power of true love. The snowstorm that had threatened to take Amelia's life had instead given her everything she had ever wanted. And Aaron, who had simply been trying to do the right thing by helping a stranger, had discovered that sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the most unexpected places. Their love story became woven into the fabric of Pioche itself, part of the town's history. People would point out the places where Aaron and Amelia had walked, the church where they married, the school where Amelia taught. Long after they were gone, their legacy remained, a testament to the fact that real love, the kind that endures through all hardships and only grows stronger with time, is not just the stuff of fairy tales. It was real. It existed. And for Aaron and Amelia Irwin, it all began with a snowdrift, a buried wagon, and a passing cowboy who stopped to help. That single act of kindness changed 2 lives forever, creating ripples that spread outward through time, affecting everyone they touched. In the end, they had found what everyone searches for: true love, a life well lived, and the knowledge that they had made the world a little better by being in it. Their story, born in a moment of crisis and desperation, became a beautiful testament to hope, love, and the incredible things that can happen when 2 hearts recognize each other across time and circumstance. And though Aaron and Amelia were long gone, their love lived on in the ranch they built, in the children and grandchildren they raised, and in the story that was still told around fires on cold winter nights, about the snowstorm that brought 2 souls together and changed everything.